March 12, 1858, Coahoma County, Mississippi. Daniel Morton opens the door to his overseer's cabin, and freezes. Standing in the doorway is a face he recognizes. A face from a plantation he helped liquidate 2 years ago, a slave he sold away. But that's impossible. Because 3 hours ago that same slave was seen at a plantation 80 miles away, with a dozen witnesses. Morton's last thought before the blade enters his chest: which one are you? Between 1856 and 1858, 5 wealthy plantation owners across Mississippi died in brutal, personal murders. No connection between the crimes. No pattern authorities could see. Until the 5th body revealed the truth. 2 identical twin brothers using their matching faces like a weapon had been hunting down every man who destroyed their family. One twin commits murder. The other twin stands in plain sight 100 miles away. Perfect alibis, perfect revenge, perfect coordination. The most sophisticated serial killing in American slavery history. Conducted by 2 men who could literally be in 2 places at once. Title card: The Twin Assassins of Mississippi 1850s, Mississippi Plantation, Cotton Fields, Slave Quarters 8030, Sweetwater Plantation. Mississippi Delta, Ruth Thompson gives birth to twin boys, Isaac and Isaiah. Identical, completely identical. So identical that even their mother sometimes could tell them apart in the first years of their lives. Twin children, then teenagers, then young men as they grew. Something remarkable happened, something that would later make them the most dangerous fugitives Mississippi had ever seen. They developed what psychologists now call twin telepathy, not supernatural, but a deep psychological synchronization where each brother could anticipate the other's thoughts and actions without speaking. In the cotton fields, they worked as one organism. One would start a movement. The other would complete it. No words needed. Overseers marveled at their efficiency. They should have been terrified. Because by age 26, Isaac and Isaiah had spent their entire lives learning to exploit their identical appearance for small deceptions, switching places during work assignments, confusing overseers about who had committed minor infractions, creating alibis when one twin needed cover for the other's actions, innocent games, survival tactics. Soon, they'd weaponize these skills for murder. Sweetwater Plantation was owned by a consortium of 5 white men: Thomas Whitfield, senior partner; primary investor James Preston, agricultural manager; Robert Quincade, financial officer; Henry Ashford, slave trader who handled purchases and sales; Daniel Morton, security and discipline, meaning the man who beat them. These 5 men had turned 6,000 acres and 200 enslaved people into a cotton empire generating $50,000 annual profit a fortune in 1856. The Thompson family had been at Sweetwater for over 20 years. Parents Samuel and Ruth, the twins, 3 younger siblings. A tight family, unusually close. That was about to become a problem. Ledger books, slave auction notices, April 1856. The 5 owners decided to liquidate Sweetwater, sell everything, move on to other investments, which meant selling the slaves. But there was a calculation to make. Keep families together equals fewer potential buyers equals lower prices OR. Split families apart equals sell to highest bidder for each individual equals maximum profit. They chose profit. April 15, 1856. Samuel Thompson, sold to a Louisiana buyer who needed carpenters. Loaded onto a wagon heading west. Ruth Thompson and the 3 younger children, sold to an Alabama plantation, wagon heading east. Isaac and Isaiah, kept at Sweetwater under the new single owner who bought the property. The Thompson family stood in the plantation yard as wagons pulled them in 3 different directions. Ruth screamed for her sons. Samuel fought his chains. The children cried. And the 5 white men who'd made this decision? They discussed crop rotations and investment returns. Most slaves broke under this kind of trauma, fell into despair, accepted their powerlessness. Isaac and Isaiah Thompson did not break. They calcified, and in the days after their family was torn apart as they worked the fields in silence, they began to plan something no enslaved people in Mississippi had ever attempted. A coordinated, multi-year assassination campaign that would kill every single person responsible for destroying their family, 5 men, 5 murders, 2 twins, 1 plan, and an identical appearance that would make conviction legally impossible. Maps of Mississippi, plantation layouts, intelligence gathering. The planning took 4 months. Most revenge killings by enslaved people were impulsive immediate violence followed by immediate capture and execution. Isaac and Isaiah understood that approach would mean killing maybe 1 man before being hanged. That wasn't good enough. All 5 had to die. So they studied the system. Trial scenes, investigations, witness testimony for years. They'd watched how criminal investigations worked in Mississippi, how authorities established guilt. What evidence was required for conviction, how witness testimony worked. And they identified the fatal weakness in the entire criminal justice system. Everything depended on identifying which specific person committed which specific crime. For normal people, identification was straightforward. But for identical twins who could substitute for each other seamlessly, the entire system collapsed. Because proving that Isaac rather than Isaiah had been at a crime scene became impossible when Isaiah could provide alibis showing he'd been somewhere else. Witnesses could definitively tell them apart even under oath. Both twins could claim any sighting was a case of mistaken identity chess pieces. Strategic planning. Their strategy was brilliantly simple. Step 1. Identify where each of the 5 former Sweetwater owners had relocated after the sale. Step 2. Study their routines. Vulnerabilities. Patterns. Step 3. When ready to kill target A, Twin 1 travels to the location while Twin 2 stays visible at Sweetwater with multiple witnesses. Step 4. Twin 1 commits the murder while Twin 2 establishes ironclad alibi. Step 5. Return. Regroup and repeat underground slave communication networks. The intelligence gathering began immediately. They exploited the invisible communication networks that connected enslaved communities across the South, the grapevine telegraph that white people did and believe existed, but which moved information faster than mail. Through Ruth's connections as a house servant, through friendships with other slaves who'd been sold from Sweetwater, through careful questions and patient listening, they learned Henry Ashford gives move to Natchez, running a slave trading office. Thomas Whitfield gives relocated to Vicksburg. Managing banking investments, James Preston gives purchased a smaller plantation in Washington County. Robert Quincade gives living in Jackson, handling financial investments. Daniel Morton gives Coahoma County, working as overseer on another plantation. Map showing locations spread across Mississippi, scattered across Mississippi, dozens or hundreds of miles apart. Perfect, because the geographic separation meant early murders wouldn't immediately alert later targets. Weapons, knives, axes, agricultural tools. Weapon selection was crucial. Firearms, too loud, too hard to acquire, too traceable. Their solution: bladed weapons, knives, axes, tools enslaved people routinely carried. Nothing suspicious, nothing traceable, and intimate enough to deliver a message. Because Isaac and Isaiah didn't just want these men dead. They wanted them to understand who was killing them. And night travel, swamp routes, patrol evasion. The transportation challenge: how to move across Mississippi when enslaved people could untravel freely, was solved through weekend passes for legitimate visits. Night travel through swamps where patrols did ungo. Knowledge of backcountry routes from a lifetime in Mississippi. Moving individually to avoid suspicious group travel. But the genius of their plan was the alibi system. Whenever one twin conducted a murder, the other twin would be visibly present in a different location with multiple witnesses. The twin at the crime scene would be glimpsed, but not examined closely. The twin providing alibi would be seen clearly by dozens of people. Later, when questioned, witness: I saw someone who looked like the Thompson twins near the murder scene. Defense: which twin? Witness: I'm not sure. They look exactly alike. Defense: well, we have 12 witnesses who swear Isaiah Thompson was at Sweetwater that night. Witness: then maybe it was Isaac? Defense: can you swear under oath it was Isaac and not Isaiah? Witness: single quotes ... no, reasonable doubt. Built into their biology. Target photos appearing one by one. They ranked their targets by culpability. First, Henry Ashford, the slave trader who physically conducted the sale and insisted on family separation for maximum profit. Second, Thomas Whitfield, senior partner who made the decision to liquidate Sweetwater. Third, James Preston, agricultural manager whose brutal methods made Sweetwater profitable. Fourth, Robert Quincaid, financial officer who treated them as pure economic assets. Fifth, Daniel Morton, the overseer whose beatings they endured for years, most to least directly responsible, all guilty, all condemned. August 10th, 1856, 4 months after the family separation. Everything was ready. The intelligence was gathered. The plan was perfected. The first target was identified, and Isaac Thompson traveled to Natchez... to become a murderer. Natchez streets at night, commercial district, dark alleys. Isaac had never killed anyone. Despite 26 years of slavery, despite beatings, despite humiliation, he'd never taken a human life. That was about to change. He spent 3 weeks conducting reconnaissance. Henry Ashford's slave trading office was in Natchez's commercial district. Ashford worked late reviewing inventories, preparing for auctions. His route home took him through a relatively isolated alley. Perfect. August 10th, 9:47 p.m. Isaac waited in the shadows of that alley, knife stolen from Sweetwater's tool shed hidden in his clothes. 80 miles away at that exact moment, Isaiah Thompson sat at a gathering of enslaved people at Sweetwater laughing, singing, being seen by dozens of witnesses who would later swear under oath that they'd seen one of the Thompson twins that evening. Henry Ashford walked into the alley, alone, vulnerable, thinking about tomorrow's slave auction. Not thinking about the Thompson family he'd separated 4 months earlier. Why would he? He'd separated hundreds of families. It was just business. Isaac stepped from the shadows. Ashford turned, confused. Isaac's first strike wasn't fatal. Deliberately, because Ashford needed to understand. Isaac's voice, cold, clear. Isaac, Henry Ashford. Look at me, look at me. Do you remember Sweetwater, April 15th? The Thompson family you destroyed. Ashford. Thompson. Which one are you? I say, both of us. This is from Isaac and Isaiah Thompson, for our parents, for our siblings, for every family you've torn apart because keeping them together wasn't profitable enough. Final strike, silence. Henry Ashford died understanding exactly why. Isaac left the body in the alley and disappeared into Natchez's slave quarters, where a friendly contact provided cover for the night. By dawn, he was traveling back to Sweetwater through routes that avoided patrols. Investigation: the body was discovered 2 hours later by a night watchman. The investigation focused on robbery as the motive because why else would someone kill a respected businessman? The idea that this was targeted revenge by enslaved people whose family Ashford had separated months earlier never entered the conversation. First success: the murder wasn't connected to Sweetwater. Authority questioning at Sweetwater. When Sweetwater's new owner questioned both twins about their whereabouts on August 10th, part of routine investigation of any slaves who might have been in Natchez recently, Isaiah's dozen alibi witnesses created perfect reasonable doubt. Owner: where were you boys on the night of the 10th? Isaiah: at the gathering, sir. Ask anyone. Witnesses: we saw him all evening. Owner: both of them? Witnesses: well, we saw one of them. Can't tell them apart, sir. Owner: right. Dismissed. Isaac and Isaiah Thompson had just committed perfect murder. And they had 4 more to go. Isaac returning, twins reuniting in secret. The psychological impact of successfully executing the first murder affected both brothers profoundly. Isaac had crossed a line he could never uncross. He'd taken a human life. Despite the moral justification, despite Ashford's guilt, killing changed him. Isaiah felt guilt of a different kind. He hadn't shared the burden, hadn't felt the weight of the blade, hadn't looked into dying eyes. Brothers talking in darkness, they made a pact. The next murder would be Isaiah's. They would share this burden equally. Both would be killers. Both would carry the weight. Because this wasn't about one brother's revenge, this was about family justice delivered by both sons. 3 months later, Thomas Whitfield walked along Vicksburg's riverfront after a day at his banking office. He didn't notice the man following him. He didn't see the axe until it was far too late. And the last words he heard before dying: the Thompson twins send their regards. from the family you destroyed. Murder number 2, complete. Map of Mississippi with murder locations marked chronologically. November 3, 1856. Thomas Whitfield killed in Vicksburg, March 15, 1857. James Preston killed at his Washington County plantation, September 28, 1857. Robert Quincaid killed in Jackson. 3 more murders. 3 more former Sweetwater owners dead, and Mississippi authorities still hadn't connected them. Separate investigation files, no cross-communication. Why? Because law enforcement in 1850s Mississippi didn't coordinate across jurisdictions effectively. Natchez investigated Ashford's death. Vicksburg investigated Whitfield's death. Washington County investigated Preston's death. Jackson investigated Quincaid's death. Nobody was looking at the bigger picture. Nobody asked, what do these 4 dead men have in common? Well, nobody white asked that question. Slave quarters whispered conversations, but enslaved communities across Mississippi knew exactly what was happening. The Grapevine Telegraph carried the story. The Thompson twins are hunting them. They're killing every master who sold their family. Don't cross the twins. They never forget. They never forgive. Isaac and Isaiah became legends in slave quarters across the South. Proof that coordinated, intelligent resistance was possible. Proof that some enslaved people would risk everything to deliver justice when legal systems provided none. Increasing boldness, Preston murder at plantation. By the 3rd murder, James Preston's death, the twins were growing bolder. Preston rarely left his plantation, never traveled alone. So Isaac infiltrated the property during evening rounds of the slave quarters and killed Preston on his own plantation, surrounded by white overseers and armed patrols. Then melted back into the slave population and escaped before anyone understood what had happened. The audacity was staggering. 4th murder, witness descriptions. The 4th murder, Robert Quincaid in Jackson, nearly exposed the pattern. A witness reported seeing someone near the murder scene who matched descriptions of a person seen near previous murder scenes. Medium height, strong build, dark complexion. Distinctive scar on the left forearm. Wait, both twins had that scar from a childhood accident. The witness had seen one of them. But which one? Investigator, can you identify which twin you saw? Witness, they look exactly alike. Investigator, but you're certain you saw someone? Witness, yes, but I can't say if it was Isaac or Isaiah. Investigator, both twins have alibis placing them at Sweetwater when the murders occurred. Witness, then maybe I'm wrong about what I saw. The investigation stalled. Because the criminal justice system could unovercome the fundamental problem. Witnesses could undistinguish between defendants who looked exactly alike. But by late 1857, the psychological toll on the twins was mounting. 16 months of planning. 4 murders executed. Constant vigilance to maintain operational security. The weight of taking 4 human lives, even guilty ones. The strain of living double lives, obedient slaves by day, coordinated assassins by night. Most people would have broken. Isaac and Isaiah Thompson sustained each other through their deep twin connection, the same bond that made their coordination possible in the first place. Final target, Daniel Morton, but one more target remained. Daniel Morton, the overseer. The disciplinarian, the man who'd beaten them for years. The man who'd been present when their family was torn apart and who'd done nothing. March 12, 1858, Coahoma County. Isaac infiltrated Morton's plantation and confronted him in his cabin. This killing was different. This one was personal. Violence implied, Morton's voice terrified Morton. Please, I was just following orders. ISAAC, you smiled when they loaded our mother onto that wagon. I saw you. Isaiah saw you. We both remember. Morton, which one are you? ISAAC, it doesn't matter. We're both here. We've always been both here. Final strike silence. Daniel Morton became the 5th and final victim. And his death finally revealed the pattern. Because a sharp investigator in Coahoma County noticed similarities to previous murders, and started asking questions. Who were these 5 dead men? What connected them? Why were they all killed the same way, personally, intimately? with the killer ensuring the victim understood why they were dying. Investigation montage, files being compared. The breakthrough came when someone reviewed records and discovered all 5 victims had been partners in Sweetwater Plantation. All 5 had been involved in selling its enslaved population in April 1856, record of Thompson family sale. And the Thompson twins' identical slaves kept at Sweetwater under new ownership had motive, means, and opportunity. Late March 1858, Isaac and Isaiah Thompson were arrested and charged with 5 counts of murder. Mississippi's most sophisticated murder investigation. The South's most legendary enslaved resistance fighters. 2 brothers who'd used their identical faces to create perfect alibis for perfect revenge. Now facing trial for their lives. Courthouse, crowds, intense media coverage. April 1858, the trial of Isaac and Isaiah Thompson became the most controversial legal proceeding in Mississippi history. The prosecution's case, 5 plantation owners dead over 20 months, all former Sweetwater partners, witnesses who saw someone matching the twins' description near murder scenes, motive, revenge for family separation. Logic, the pattern was too specific to be coincidence. The defense's case, reasonable doubt, because witnesses couldn't definitively state which twin they'd seen. Because alibis placed at least one twin elsewhere during each murder. Because Mississippi law required proof beyond reasonable doubt of individual guilt. The trial became a battle over identity itself. Prosecutor, the witness saw one of these defendants at the scene. Defense attorney, which one? Witness, I can't be certain. Defense attorney, so you can't swear under oath that it was Isaac rather than Isaiah? Witness, single quotes ... Defense attorney, and we have 12 witnesses who place Isaiah at Sweetwater that night. Witness, then maybe it was Isaac. Defense attorney, maybe? We're talking about death penalty, sir. Mississippi law doesn't convict on maybe. Jury deliberation, 4 days of deliberations. 12 white men wrestling with an impossible problem. The twins were guilty, but could they prove it beyond reasonable doubt? Divided jury, some jurors. The circumstantial evidence is overwhelming, convict them. Others, but we can't definitively identify which twin did what. That's not legal justice. The compromise verdict shocked everyone. Guilty of conspiracy to commit murder and guilty of actually conducting the murders. It was legally questionable, a contradiction. But it reflected the jury's impossible position. Punish them for crimes everyone believed they'd committed ... While acknowledging evidence didn't support murder convictions. The judge sentenced both twins to death by hanging for conspiracy. Even though they hadn't been convicted of the actual killings, legal observers called it judicial overreach. But Mississippi wanted these twins dead. Appeals dragged on for over a year. Defense. Conspiracy without underlying murder convictions can't justify death sentences. Prosecution. 5 planned murders over 2 years justifies maximum punishment. Mississippi Supreme Court, in a divided opinion, upheld the convictions and sentences. June 15, 1859. Over 2,000 spectators gathered to watch the execution. The largest crowd in Mississippi history. Some came to see justice, some came to see martyrs. Final moment, Isaac and Isaiah Thompson were given the opportunity to make final statements from the gallows. What they said became legend, recorded by newspaper reporters and reproduced in abolitionist publications across the North. ISAAC. We die today for killing 5 men who destroyed our family by selling our parents and siblings away to maximize their profits. Isaiah, Mississippi law says this is murder deserving death. We accept that under your law, we must hang for what we did. ISAAC, but God's justice is different from Mississippi's justice. Those 5 men committed crimes against our family that your law never recognized and never punished. ISAIH, we gave them justice your legal system refused to provide. We tracked them across Mississippi. We made each one understand before he died who was killing him and why. ISAAC, we die satisfied that we delivered this justice. We die knowing that 5 men who thought they could destroy families without consequences learned they were wrong. Isaiah, and we die telling every enslaved person watching this execution, Families matter more than laws that claim family separation is legal. Simultaneous drop, silence, both twins died together, hanged simultaneously on adjacent gallows. As they'd lived, as they'd killed together, white authorities tried to suppress their story, but it was too late. The story of the Thompson twins spread through every slave quarter in the South. Proof that coordinated resistance could succeed. Proof that white plantation owners were vulnerable. Proof that some people would accept death to ensure accountability for those who destroyed families. Historical documents, modern historians, legacy discussion. Modern historians have documented extensive evidence of the Thompson twins case through trial transcripts, newspaper accounts from 1856-1859, court records and appeals documents, oral histories maintained by descendants of Mississippi's enslaved population. Dr. Robert Hamilton, professor of legal history at the University of Mississippi, writes in his book Twin Justice, Isaac and Isaiah, Thompson's murder campaign represents a fascinating intersection of criminal law, racial dynamics, and the practical challenges of prosecuting identical twins before modern forensic science. Their use of identical appearance to create alibis was strategically brilliant and exposed fundamental vulnerabilities in how guilt was established through witness testimony and physical identification. So what do we take from this story? First, enslaved people were not powerless victims. Some possessed sophisticated intelligence and planning capabilities that white supremacy claimed they could and have. Second, family separation was so psychologically devastating that it drove people to serial murder conducted over years with methodical precision. Third, identical twins created unique tactical advantages for resistance that criminal justice systems couldn't overcome. And finally, Isaac and Isaiah Thompson died satisfied because they de-ensured that every person who participated in destroying their family faced justice. Terrible justice, personal justice. Justice that Mississippi's laws had never imagined enslaved people could coordinate and sustain. Cotton fields, plantation ruins, memorial markers, 2 brothers, 5 murders, 1 unbreakable bond. The twin assassins of Mississippi proved that some people will risk everything and lose everything to ensure that crimes against family never go unanswered, even when the law calls it murder, and history calls it justice. So I want to hear from you. Was what Isaac and Isaiah did murder or justice? If your family was torn apart and the law provided no protection, what would you do? And does their identical appearance make their campaign more brilliant or more disturbing? Drop your answers in the comments below. Share this video with someone who loves complex true crime stories about resistance, revenge, and the exploitation of legal system vulnerabilities. And subscribe for more incredible historical cases that challenge everything you thought you knew about crime, justice, and what people are capable of when pushed beyond all breaking points. These are the stories they don't teach in history class, but they should.